Oh, yeah, hi. Welcome to the MEMONEET. And yes, so in the last video, we have discussed some of the basic concepts in structural organization in animal, like what are the types of tissues and how tissues are made and what the functions of each and individual tissues. So basic concepts are very important. I know in your new NCERT textbook of biology, you won't get the basic aspects of tissues. But before getting into the actual topic to know this morphology, anatomy, the basic concept is very important. Matlab, if you are very strong with your basics, then only you'll be able to understand the complex of the subject, right? So that's why basics are very important. And yes, questions might also come from those basic concepts also. So make sure that you understand them and you revise them. If you're not finding a textbook for that, if you're not finding the information, then find the slides which I have been projecting on the screen even in the last video. So everything line by line is from the NCERT textbook itself. So yes, you can easily blindly you can follow those lines and you can follow my videos, right? So in this video I'll be discussing on the morphology and anatomy of frog. So it's your thing which is there in your syllabus. So what are the things I'll be explaining in this chapter is morphology, obviously, it means physical appearance, everything, and anatomy regarding its circulatory system, regarding its nervous system, excretion, as well as digestive system, and even the reproductive aspect of both male and female frogs. So these all things will be discussed in today's video, that is in today's lecture, right? Cool. So yeah, moving. So as I told you that class amphibians that you are being seeing, right? So they class amphibians of phylum Chordata. That means they normally belongs to what phylum? They belongs to the phylum Chordata. And the most common species of the frog that you will find in India is actually the Rana tigrina. Okay, this is the most common, a very common species that you will find. Right. So, and the major thing is they do not have a constant body temperature. Constant body temperature means a proper or specific body temperature like we human beings have, right? So we human beings actually maintain a constant body temperature, but these, amphibians, that is especially the frog, so they do not have a constant body temperature or they do not follow a particular body temperature. So their body temperature get varies with the environment also. So such animals which varies their body temperature are actually called as cold-blooded animals, or they are also called as phycilotherms, right? Because cold-blooded animals means there are two types of like bloods, right? One is cold-blooded animals and another one is hot. See, in basically what happens in cold-blooded animals, that is phycilotherms. Basically, what happens is they change their body temperature with respect to the environment. Say like environment has temperature variation, then the body temperature also shows the variation also. And some of the aquatic animals like fishes and also belong to the cold-blooded animals, and we all belongs to hot-blooded animals. Like we have a constant fixed body temperature, and our body temperature will not change with respect to the environment circumstance. So have you seen that some of the frogs, they also change their color? Like if the frogs are on the grass, so they are in the grass, it will be somewhat greenish in color. And if it is in on the dry land, sometimes you will see them something brownish in color. So that means change in the color of the frog while they are in the grass or in a dry land. So that means they have the ability to change their body color. To why they have this ability? To hide themselves from their enemies. Since frog, right, they normally shows this thing called as camouflage. So camouflage is the ability to change the color to hide them from their enemies. So that is called as camouflage. So in frogs, what happens? Just to protect themselves from the enemies, they want to protect themselves from the enemies. So this is the defense mechanism that frog shows. This protective coloration is actually called as mimicking. Okay, another term you should know that is called mimicking. That is this protective coloration or the way this mechanism, that is camouflage, is something which is actually protecting this frog, right? So it is actually called as mimicking. It is trying to mimic the environment, mimic the surrounding. So you may also know that the frogs are actually not seen highly. So when exactly the frogs will be seen most? During this season. This is rainy season, right? So this season is where you will actually see the more number of frog population. So that means you won't see the frogs during the peak summer. Peak summer matlab jab summer will be more extent, or in the peak winter you won't see the frog. So when you will actually be seeing the frog in the rainy season, because it is actually called as the breeding seasons for frog, rainy season or monsoon season, right? So during the summer season or winter season, what happens is when there is an extreme heat or extreme cold, right? So they take shelter in a deep burrows to protect them from the extreme heat or cold. So they will get into a deep burrows. That means they will go in a deep burrows or a caves or something like in the land. So to protect themselves from the extreme heat or cold. And this is actually called as, if this thing is happening in the summer, then normally we call them as summer sleep. In scientific terminology, it is actually called as estivation. And if this is happening in the winter, we normally call it as winter sleep, and that is nothing but hibernation. So you should know what is the difference between the estivation and hibernation. Estivation is nothing but summer sleep, but hibernation is nothing but winter sleep. Okay, and you can actually see the frog structure, right? Like how it is very smooth, the skin is very smooth, right? So coming to the morphology of the frog. So can you just some imagination when I'm talking about some say like morphology of a frog. You know some things comes in your mind, right? Because everyone have seen the frog. One or the other way in your daily life, you have seen a frog. It could be a toad or it could be a frog, right? So what is the morphology thing that comes, like what is the physical appearance that comes in front of you, is the skin is basically smooth and slippery, right? Skin is what? It is very smooth and it is also slippery. That means you cannot hold the frog very tightly. Why? Because on the skin you will actually find the presence of the what? Mucus. Okay, and the skin is always maintained in a moist condition. That means skin are always been maintained in the very moist condition. And you should also know that this frog, it actually is an amphibian which is able to live in both water as well as land. Okay, so and the reproductive cycle, that is their initial development mainly happens in the water as tadpole. Then the adult frog, they emerges out and they are able to live in both water as well as land. So the skin should always maintain a moist condition. That's why there is a mucus which has been produced on the skin, and that will make the skin very smooth and slippery. And the color of the dorsal side of the body is generally olive green. So when you just look at the dorsal surface of the frog, you will always find them with the olive green with a dark irregular spots. Can you see this dark irregular spots? So basically you'll see the colors are actually what? Olive green and dark irregular spots you will check in the surface of the body. So on the ventral side, when you see on the ventral side, it is uniformly pale yellow. And when you see this ventral side like this, you will actually see something uniformly pale yellowish color, right? So this ventral side, what you are seeing actually yellowish color or body skin is, right? And the frog never drinks water but absorbs it through the skin. This is very interesting point. What is it? Yes, the frog will never drink a water. Okay, see, the frog will never drink a water, but it absorbs the water. How? It absorbs the water through the skin. That's what that's saying. So this is actually a very interesting thing about frog, right? So this is one point. And coming to the body of the frog, you can actually see the body is being divided into head, trunk, right? So the body is being divided into head as well as trunk. So you'll also see the neck region here and tail region here, but both the neck region and tail region are absent. Okay, you can actually see this neck and tail region in other organisms maybe, but here you will not be able to differentiate where the neck region is. That means neck region is basically it is absent, and also tail is absent, but tail you will actually find it during the initial development, during the tadpole development. So tail is there. Why the tail is tail is there? It helps in the swimming. So during the adult formation, the tail gradually, it gets lost. Okay. So the body of the frog, as I told, it has head and tail region, and the neck and tail, head and trunk region, where the neck and tail region is absent. And above the mouth, if you see, okay, you will actually find a pair of nostrils is present. So a pair of nostrils is present. And can you see this eye actually? Yes. So what is this eye? Eye is somewhat bulged in shape and covered by what? Nictitating membrane. So it has been covered by what? Nictitating membrane. This is again very important point, okay? Because the eye, the question might also come in this way. So eye, it is bulged in shape and it has been covered by nictitating membrane. So what is the major function of this nictitating membrane is it will protect the eye when it is in water. So that is while in water, that means when the frog is in the water, right? So this nictitating membrane is going to protect the eye from the water, because water is not good. There it will be consisting of many particles, so that might damage the frog obviously. So that's why there is a nictitating membrane, a covering membrane on the eyes. So that nictitating membrane is going to protect the eye when the frog is in the water. On either sides of the eyes, a membranous ear you can actually call. So this is actually something called as tympanum. Okay. So what is this tympanum? It is a kind of membranous ear. You'll find them. So this is the ear where the frog will be able to receive the sound signal. So this is exactly the ear where the frog is going to receive the sound signal. So this is very important. Right. So another point is about the forelimbs and hind limbs. So what is the major function of forelimbs and hind limbs is, so it helps in swimming, it helps in walking, leaping, as well as burrowing habit, right? So it helps in swimming, forelimbs and hind limbs, walking, leaping and burrowing. And the major function of hind limb is, you can actually see this hind limbs, they are end in 5 digits. That means it normally has what? 5 digits. And they are very large when compared to the forelimbs. So that means that hind limbs has actually a muscular than the forelimbs. That is, you can actually see the size. It is very much large. It is muscular, very strong when compared to the forelimbs. And therefore, these hind limbs is major reason for tapping as well as jumping. Okay, for jumping also major force will be on the hind limb itself when compared to the forelimb. So where the feet, that is both the limbs, we know that they are webbed digits. Okay, so both are what? Webbed digits. And why webbed digits is very important. Webbed digits, and wherever the organisms, if you see, they are actually having the webbed digits, that means it helps in the swimming. Have you seen duck? It actually has a webbed toe, right? So that helps in the swimming as well as tapping in the water. The same way, in the frog, it has what? Webbed digit. That means it helps in what? It helps in swimming. So as I told you before that the frog, they normally exhibit what? Sexual dimorphism. What is the sexual dimorphism is? You can easily differentiate the frog sex or gender. Means the male frogs can be distinguished by the presence of sound producing vocal. Okay, that means the male frogs, right? In the frog, you'll actually see both the male as well as female frog. And how can you differentiate the male frog in the group? So by observing the presence of sound producing vocal, okay, which sound producing vocal sacs, which is present in the male frog only. And why this is very important? This sound producing the vocal sacs, it is very important during the copulation, that is during the breeding season. It will produce the sound. Okay, so you have seen the toading sound, roaring sound of the frog. So that means the male frog is actually calling the female frog. So that is something called as, it is a signal. Okay. And also a copulatory pad on the first digit of the forelimbs. You can also observe the copulatory pad on the first digit of the forelimbs, which are actually absent in the female frogs. So in female frogs, what all the things will be absent? One thing is sound producing vocal sacs will be absent. The second one is the copulatory pad on the first digit of the forelimbs will be absent. So these two things will be present in the male frog itself. So in this way, you are being able to compare and you are able to differentiate between the male frog as well as the female frog. So this is the morphology of the frog. Clear? So now let me come with the anatomy part. Okay, so I'll just try to cover up and I'll come with the anatomy part. So anatomy means internal organs that we are studying, right? So first thing is about its digestive system. Like, what is the digestive system of the frog? The digestive system of the frog normally consists of alimentary canal as well as the digestive gland. So this two things are very important. So one thing is it consists of what? Alimentary canal, and the second thing is it consists of what? The digestive gland. In comparatively, the alimentary canal is actually shorter because frogs are carnivores. Okay, alimentary canal will always be shorter because the frogs are carnivores. So that means what happens, and hence the length of intestine system. Like if you see the intestine also, it is somewhat reduced. Okay, in most of the carnivorous animals, you will see the alimentary canal is short and the intestine is also short or reduced because there, it cannot store, absorbing of the energy takes more than. So that's why what happens. So almost everything will be initially done in the stomach itself and directly with lot of pressure in intestine, the absorption will happen. So that's why always remember that in the frog, the alimentary canal will be very small because they are carnivores, and hence if alimentary canal is short, then obviously intestine should also be very short. Okay, it also be very something called reduced. So this is another point. Then when I'm talking about the mouth, okay, the mouth opens into a buccal cavity. What happens? So if this is the mouth region, so mouth region will always opens into a buccal cavity. Lead, okay, so leads to what? Esophagus, buccal cavity to the esophagus. From the mouth is actually called as buccal cavity. From the buccal cavity to leading to the esophagus. From esophagus is something actually short tube. Right. Esophagus is short tube that opens into what? Esophagus follows stomach. That means it opens into stomach. So stomach in turn, okay, in turn continuous in the intestine. So from stomach, you will actually see what? Intestine. So from intestine, you will actually see the rectum. The food, whatever the digested, will move to the rectum. From intestine to the rectum, and from the rectum to the outside, like whatever the digested, now the waste food or waste material, it should go out, right? So where it is going to go out, it is through the cloaca, right? So after that, so this is how the food normally passes. So from the buccal cavity, uh so from the buccal cavity to the esophagus, right? So from the esophagus to the stomach, from the stomach to the intestine, from the intestine to the rectum, from the rectum to the cloaca. And at the end region, you'll actually find the cloacal apparatus. So this is how the process of digestion normally happens, right? So now at the final, what you'll see is the liver. You'll actually see what? You'll actually see the liver also, right? So you're seeing the liver here. That is, I'll take the red one. So this is the liver, right? So what happens? The liver secretes the bile juice. So what is the major function of liver now? Bile secretion, right? So the liver normally secretes the bile juice, and that bile juice, right, it is actually being stored in where? It has been stored in the gallbladder. So whatever the bile juice is being secreted by the liver, so it is being stored by the gallbladder. Storage of bile juice. So you're getting the function exactly what I'm trying to say you. So yes, so the liver is going to secrete the bile juice, and the bile juice which has been secreted will be stored by the gallbladder, right? And the digestive, this is one thing. So next thing is we have the pancreas here. So what do we have? We will basically will be having the pancreas, right? So the pancreas major thing is it is going to produce a digestive gland, or a digestive gland produce a pancreatic juice. So in the pancreas, we have a digestive gland which is going to produce the pancreatic juice. So these pancreatic juice, right, it will be containing what? So they will be containing certain digestive enzymes. Digestive enzymes. Like, see, one thing is in the pancreas, we have the digestive gland. So digestive gland is going to produce the pancreatic juice, right? So this pancreatic juice will be containing what? Digestive enzymes. So this is the major thing about digestive system. So you are getting what about the digestive system? First thing you will see the buccal cavity to the esophagus, then it will move to the stomach follows the intestine, then to the rectum, and the last one is cloaca. So this is how it goes. And we know that in the digestive system, we have liver. So what is the function of liver? The secretion of bile, and whatever the bile has been secreted will be stored in the gallbladder. So we also have the pancreas where the digestive glands are present. They are going to secrete the pancreatic juice, and this pancreatic juice will be consisting of certain digestive enzymes which helps in the digestion of the food in stomach and somewhat in intestine. So this is all about the anatomy, especially to the digestion of the frog. Right. So now in detail, if you want me to go in detail, like what happens, here you have. So now what happens? The frog, imagine, I want you guys to imagine. So what I want you to imagine is you are seeing a frog, and the frog has captured the insect. Okay. So what I want you guys to imagine is I want you to imagine that the frog have captured an insect and it is chewing the insect. That means it is actually it is eating the insect. So now what happened? The food is where it has been captured. It has actually been captured in the bilobed tongue, right? That means frog, it has a very long, elongative, tongue, right? So it comes out, and it is actually with the help of the tongue itself, which is very sticky, it is going to capture the prey. So food is captured by the bilobed tongue. This is one point. So once it has been captured, right, digestion of the food takes place. How it is going to take place? By the action of the HCl and the gastric juice. Where it is being secreted? It is secreted in the walls of the stomach. It is being secreted where? It is secreted in the walls of the stomach. So particularly digestive food called chyme. So you will actually see that when the food has been digestive, we normally, that is in the mouth region, we normally call them as the particularly the digested food called as chyme is passed from the, so now in the digestion, what happens in the stomach? So the food is digested, and the digested food is actually called as chyme. So it is from the stomach, it will be passed to the intestine. You're getting? So from the stomach, it will be passed to the intestine as well as to the duodenum, right? So in the duodenum, so what happens? You will see the receiving of the bile juice there, as well as you will see some gallbladder also, right? So as well as the pancreatic juice will also be present in the intestine, as I have told you before. So where they all are through the bile duct, they all comes from the bile duct itself. So now what happens? These will emulsify the fat, and pancreas juice, right, digest the carbohydrates which is present in the food as well as the proteins which is present in the food. And finally, the digestion takes place in the intestine. That means once the chewing is happened, so it will move to the stomach, and stomach, what happens? There will be an action of HCl as well as the gastric juice, which is actually secreted in the walls of the stomach, right? So as a result, what happened? The food will get digested and it is called as chyme. So these chyme from the stomach will pass through the intestine as well as duodenum, right? So in the duodenum, you will actually see this duodenum will receive the bile from the gallbladder. So this is the gallbladder. From here, the duodenum is going to, it is going to receive the bile juice, right, from the gallbladder, and pancreatic juice from the pancreas. So pancreatic juice from where? It is going to receive the pancreatic juice from the pancreas. So through a common duct. So here what happens? The bile juice is going to emulsify the fat, or it is going to break down the fat. Okay. And the pancreatic juice, right? So that juice is going to digest the carbohydrates which is present in the, digest the carbohydrates as well as proteins. Okay. So where? In the food, that is in the chyma. So finally digestion will takes place in the intestine itself, right? Digestion and absorption will takes place in the intestine. So digested food will be absorbed. Where it will be absorbed? In the intestine, you will find the numerous finger-like foldings. In the intestine, you will actually find where in the inner walls of the intestine, you will actually find what? Villi and microvilli. Okay. So there, whatever the food, right? So there absorption of the nutrients, everything will happens, because there are numerous, if you consider this as an intestine, right? So there are numerous finger-like projections which we normally call as villi or microvilli. Okay, so microvilli. So there what happens? The absorption takes place, and undigested solid waste, right? So that will move to the rectum and passes out through the cloaca. It will move to the rectum and passes through the cloaca. So frogs respire on land. I told you, right? So plants live in both land as well as water. That means respiration also happens in two ways. That is, it normally respires in the land also as well as in the water also, but not in the same method. That means there are two different ways or method. So in water, when the frog is in the water, we need to remember it actually respires through the skin. Okay, so it normally respires through the skin. That is, the skin acts as an aquatic respiratory organ. Okay, whereas dissolved oxygen in the water has been exchanged to the skin diffusion, and once it is in the land, obviously through the lungs. That's what. So in the land, you will actually see a buccal cavity. The skin and lung act as a both respiratory organ here. So respiration by lung is actually called as pulmonary respiration. This is very important. So respiration through the lung is actually called as, by the lung is actually called as what? Pulmonary respiration. The lung are actually a pair of what? Elongated pink colored sac like structure. So they're actually defining you how the lung structure is. So how the lung structure is? The lungs are paired of elongated pink colored and sac like structure, which is present in the upper part of the trunk region. That is where you will find in the thorax region, right? In the thorax region, upper part of the thorax region, you will find the lungs. So air enters through the nostrils. I told you in the structure there are nostrils, right? So air enters when this all thing happens when it is in land. So air enters through the nostrils, then into the buccal cavity, and then to the lung. So during estivation and hibernation, that is summer sleep as well as winter sleep, the gases exchange takes place through the skin here. This is very important. So when you will be seeing, but one another phenomenon that happens is during summer sleep as well as winter sleep. So you will see the gases exchange, that is respiration, takes place where through the skin. Okay, so this is what happens. So this was all about what the digestive system as well as the respiratory system of the frog. So till now, I guess you have no doubts, have discussed regarding the morphology, right? So physical appearance of frog. Then in the anatomy, have discussed regarding its digestive system, right? And then the excretion, how happens, and the respiration part of the frog, right? To this major part is the anatomy of frog heart. So when I'm talking about the anatomy of frog heart, well, basic thing is the diagram is not there in any of the textbooks, so no issues, no need to refer the diagram. I have just put the diagram so that you'll have a clarity, a kind of picturized clarity regarding how the frog heart looks like. So this is somewhat different when compared to our human being's heart, right? Like human heart. So that is the vascular system of a frog is well developed, closed type of system. That is closed type of circulatory system is what you will be saying. And they have a lymphatic system also. So that is the blood vascular system involves what? One thing is it involves heart, then it involves the blood vessels and it involves the blood also. So this lymphatic system, it normally consists of lymph channel, and the lymph node. So heart is a muscular structure which is situated and actually in the upper part of the body cavity. So if it is a body cavity, in the upper part of the body cavity, the heart is situated, and heart is three-chambered heart you will see in the frog. So in three-chambered heart, you will actually see two is auricle and one will be the ventricle. And how it has been covered? It is covered by a membrane, and that membrane is actually called as pericardium membrane. So it is covered by what membrane, guys? It is covered by the pericardium membrane. So, and what is the structure? When you see the structure of heart, it is somewhat triangular structure, right? And that triangular structure of heart is actually called as sinus venicus. So what happens is you will actually see this thing. It is somewhat triangular in structure, which is actually called as sinus venosus. So these sinus venosus, it is always you remember that it is joins the right atrium. So it normally joins what? Right atrium. And this is a part where it receives the blood through the major veins that are called as vena cava, and the ventricle opens into the sac-like conus arteriosus on the ventral side of the heart. So it is the if I'm saying something like this is auricles. So what happened in the ventral side of your heart? You will actually see the opening. So ventral opening into a sac-like conus. Okay, so will be seen in the ventral side of the heart. And the blood from the heart is carried to all parts of the body by the arteries. So this is major thing. So first thing is heart. Heart is actually what? It has a blood vascular system, includes heart, blood vessels, and blood. So it consists of the lymph channel and lymph node. So it is muscular, which is situated in the upper part of the body cavity. It has three-chambered heart, where two will be the auricle and one is the ventricle, and it is covered by what? Pericardium membrane. Okay, and there is a triangular structure called as sinus venosus. So this is joins the right atrium and it receives the blood through the major veins. They are called as vena cava. Right. Then we have a ventral opening is also that where it gets opens. It opens into the sac, into a sac-like conus. Right. So on where ventral side of the heart, it will open into a sac-like conus, arteriosus on the ventral side of the heart, and the blood from the heart is carried out to all the parts of the body by where? By the arteries. That is arterial system. Okay. Right. So then we have the veins, right? So these veins basically what their major function is, they are going to collect the blood from the different parts of the body. Where? To the heart. So heart is going to supply the blood to the arteries. Then after arteries, we have veins. What is the function of veins? Now deoxygenated blood or the blood which was being supplied to the other parts of the body, it will collect back those blood. Okay. It is going to collect back those blood from the different parts of the body to the heart and forms a venous system. Okay, it forms what? Venous system. And there is a special venous connection between the liver and intestine as well as kidney and lower parts of the body, which is actually present in the frog. And the form is actually called as, this formation is actually called as hepatic portal system. It is actually called as hepatic portal system. And later as it is actually called as renal portal system. So first thing it is called as hepatic portal system and later it is called as renal portal system. Right. So this is one major point. So after this, you will see that the blood is composed of what? So we have blood, that is the frog has blood and the blood is composed of the plasma as well as cells. That means it consists of the RBC, that is red blood cells, which is nothing but erythrocytes. It consists of white blood cells, which is nothing but leukocytes, and platelets also it consists, right? It also consists what? It also consists one is it consists of RBC, that is erythrocytes. It consists of WBC, which is nothing but the leukocytes, and also the platelets. So RBCs, we know that they're nucleated and contain the red colored pigment here. So the pigment is actually called as hemoglobin, right? So the lymph is different from the blood now. So it lacks few proteins and RBCs. The lymph node, the lymphs that we are talking in the blood, right? So they normally lack some of the proteins and also some of the RBCs in its blood. So the blood carries, major thing is it is going to carry the nutrients is the first point. So second thing is gas and water to the respective sites during the circulation. That is the blood is the one which is going to carry the nutrients from one part to the another part. Then the oxygen, right? That is the air, oxygen, that is gas. It could be oxygen or deoxygen. Oxygen from the heart to the different parts of the body and deoxygenated, deoxygen, that is carbon dioxide from different parts of the body to the heart, as well as water to its respective site where during the circulation. And the circulation of the blood is actually been achieved by veins, which you will be finding in the muscular heart. So this is all about the anatomy of the frog heart. So next we have is its elimination of the waste. So frog normally eliminates the nitrogenous waste, right? And how it has been carried out? It has been carried out by a well-developed excretory system. So the system consists of a pair of kidney. It consists of a pair of what? Kidney, then ureters, and it also have a gallbladder here. So these are compact and dark red and bean-like structure, which is actually situated in the posterior region in the body cavity on both the side of ventral column. And each kidney, when you are talking about the kidney, right? Each kidney is composed of several structural and functional units, and they're called as uriniferous tubules, right? So they are actually called as uriniferous tubules, or I can also call them as nephrons. So two ureters emerges from the kidney in the male frog, and the ureters act as an urinogenital duct. Remember this point, guys. So the ureters, it acts as a urinogenital duct which opens into the cloaca. So cloaca is the end part of the digestive system, right, where the waste will be removed or it will be come out from the body. So in female, what happens? These ureters, the ureters and the oviduct open separately in the cloaca. So one thing you should remember: in male, what happens? The ureters acts as a urinary duct. Ureters acts as what? Urinogenital urinogenital duct, right? Urinogenital duct which opens into which opens into cloaca. So whereas in female, so what you will see this, the ureters as well as the oviduct will be open separately. Okay, is going to open separately. Right. So the frog excretes the urine that we know, and thus it is actually called as urinotelic animal. So this is another very important point, that the urine has been excreted by the frog as a waste. So it is actually called as urinotelic animal. Excretory waste are carried by the blood into the kidney, where it is being separated and that has been excreted out as a form of urea. Right. So next thing is about the nervous system. So what about the nervous system, guys? So the system for controlled and coordination, right? So in of all the function that is being involved in the frog is actually the nervous system. So this includes both the nervous system as well as the endocrine gland. Together, they control and coordinate your the frogs all over the function, and it's together. So this chemical coordination of various organs of the frog is actually achieved by the hormones which are secreted by hormones which are being secreted by what? Hormones are always secreted by the endocrine glands, right? So and whatever the nerve impulse is always been through the nervous system. When it comes to endocrine gland, the hormones are secreted by the endocrine glands, and nerve impulse, everything happens through the nervous system here. So this prominent endocrine glands which are found in the frog are what? So what are the endocrine glands that are found in the frog? So one thing is pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid, thymus, pineal gland which is present there, and the pancreatic islets and adrenal gland, and the last one is gonads. Right. So these are the glands, very important. Note down what are the glands which are produced from the frog. So one is pituitary, thyroid, parathyroid, thymus, pineal, pancreatic, adrenal, and gonads. So totally 8 glands are being seen here. Now coming to the nervous system, it is organized, well organized nervous system. So it has two. One is central nervous system and the another one is peripheral nervous system. So central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system consists of cranial nerves and spinal nerves here. And again, you will also see one thing, that is autonomic nervous system. So that consists of both sympathetic as well as parasympathetic nervous system. So if you want to know this in detail, I'll make another video in the nervous system chapter. So stay tuned for that, okay? But right now, this is enough. I mean, this is fine for you that we have a nervous system where we have central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and an autonomic nervous system also. So here there are actually 10 pair of cranial nervous system. Okay. So how many pair? 10 pair of cranial nervous system which arises from the brain. So cranial nervous system belongs to peripheral nervous system. That means the extension to the body. Okay. And brain is enclosed. Where it has been enclosed? It has been enclosed by a bony structure, and that is called as brain box. Cranium. Remember that brain box, which is actually called as what? Cranium. So the brain has been divided into three things. One is forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. This forebrain includes the olfactory lobes, paired cerebral hemisphere, and unpaired Dinocephalon. Okay, so these are the three things that forebrain will be including. One is olfactory lobes, paired cerebral hemisphere, and unpaired Dinocephalon. And coming to the midbrain, it is characterized by a pair of optical lobe. And the last one is hindbrain. So hindbrain is characterized by the consisting of what? Cerebral as well as the medulla oblongata. This is very important. You should know what it consists of. Okay. So what does midbrain consist of? What does the hindbrain consist of? And what does the forebrain consist of? You should know it. The forebrain consists of olfactory lobes, paired cerebral hemisphere, and unpaired cephalon. Midbrain consists of optical lobes, whereas pair of optical lobes, that is again very important. Pair, no, not only optical lobes, but pair of optical lobes. Hindbrain consists of cerebrum as well as medulla oblongata. And the last, this medulla oblongata that I'm talking, right? It passes out through the foramen magnum. So it passes out through the foramen magnum and continues into the spinal cord, which is enclosed in the vertebral column. Clear? So this was all about what? The endocrine glands as well as the nervous system. So coming to the sensory organs, frog has different sensory organs here. So like touch, it is through the sensory papillae, and taste through the taste bud, smell through the nasal epithelium, and vision through the eyes, and hearing to tympanum, right, with the internal ear. So out of this, eyes as well as the internal ear are well organized structure, and rest are what? Cellular aggregations around the nerve ending. So eyes in the frog are a pair of the spherical situated structure which is being situated in the orbit in the skull. This is another point. So there are simple eyes possessing only one unit, and external ear is absent in the frog. You cannot see like this kind of external ear on the frog. Okay, in the frog, sorry. And only that is the internal ear, that is tympanum, can be seen externally. So ear is an organ of hearing as well as balancing. That is, it balances the equilibrium. Now coming to the what do you say, that reproduction part of the frog. So we have both male as well as female reproductive part here. So when I'm talking about the male reproductive part, this one, the male reproductive organ consists of pair of. So what you are seeing actually here, you are seeing pair of something yellowish tissues you are seeing, right? That is actually called as yellowish what do you say, that testis you are seeing here, right? So it is somewhat yellowish testis. So how many pairs are, like, how many are there? Two are there. That is, a pair of yellowish testis you are seeing are found. Where they are being found? They are found in the adhered to the upper part of the kidney. So if this is the kidney, in the upper part of the kidney, you are actually seeing the pair of what? Testis here, right? By double folds of peritoneum, which is called as mesorchium, right? So another thing is, so you have the vasa efferent here. So this is the vasa efferent. They are 10 to 12 in numbers. Rises from where? It rises from the tissues, and it is 10 to 12 in numbers. So that enters the kidney now on other side and opens into the Beader's canal. So it normally opens into the Beader's canal. So finally, it communicates with the urinogenital duct. It finally, from here, it is going to have a connection, communicate with the it communicates with the, so from here, it is going to communicate with the urinogenital duct. So then it comes to the kidney part, right? Urinogenital cut. So that what a duct that comes out of the kidney and opens into, where does it comes? Cloaca, which is very small, then medium chamber that is used to pass the fecal matter, urine and sperm to the exterior. That is sperm. See, one thing you need to remember, that in the male reproductive organ is consist of the yellowish, pair of testes here, and they're found where? They're found on the adhered means attached to the upper part of the kidney. Okay, and you will also see the vasa efferent, which is actually arised from the tissue and it is attached to the kidney here. So they through that they will enter into the kidney on their side and opens into the Bidder's canal. Finally, it is going to communicate through the urinogenital duct and whatever the sperms, right? So it will be released out from the kidney through the urinogenital duct to where? Cloaca. Okay. So the cloaca, which is, you can actually see this cloaca, which is very small. You can see here, right? Which is very small, medium chamber, where it is used in the passage of the fecal matter, then the urine as well as sperms to the exterior, that is outside. So if you focus on the female reproductive tract, okay, female reproductive organ, it includes the pair of what? Ovaries. Right. So these ovaries, where they are situated, again they are situated nearer to the kidney, and there is no functional connection between the kidney. Here in male, we had some connection with the kidney, but here there is no functional connection with the kidney. So we have a pair of oviduct here. Can you see the oviduct? So we have a pair of oviduct here. So this oviduct, where it arises from the ovary, so it arises from the ovary and opens, the pair of the oviduct arises from the ovaries, opens into the cloaca separately. Then it opens to the cloaca separately. Okay. So then in the matured female, what happens? You can see they normally lay egg around 2500 to 3000 ova at a time. That is egg at one time, at a time. And fertilization is external. Once the egg has been released, right? So where the fertilization takes place, it takes place in the water. Egg is released and again the male is going to release the sperm. Fertilization happens. The development involves what? Several larval stages and tadpole. So that means it actually undergoes metamorphosis. So there is a term called metamorphosis, right? Metamorphosis is nothing but you will actually know where the initial stage of the development resembles to the parents. That is, in frog, you will see the tadpoles. That means they are having fish-like structure. It has tail and all right, gills it has. But in adult, you'll see the in the frog, gills is absent and tail is absent. Right. Instead, you will actually see the forelimbs and hind limbs. The structure is completely different from the initial stage to the adult stage. So nowhere the initial development of early embryo will resembles the parent. So that means for the development, during the development, it undergoes several morphological and structural changes. Okay. That is called as metamorphosis. Right. These are the basic things that happens in the reproductive part. So now just say me, what are the things that we have discussed? We have discussed about the anatomy, morphology, external appearance of the frog. In coming to the anatomy part, we have even discussed regarding the digestion, their excretion. Then we have discussed regarding the this thing, that is heart, its anatomy. Then we have also discussed regarding its Again, it kind of what do you say that respiration. So both two kinds of respiration. One is what happens in the water through the skin, and what happens in the land through the skin as well as through the lungs. And during hibernation and estivation also, what type of respiration you will be seeing. So both respiration happens through the skin here. Another thing we have studied is about the endocrine, endocrine glands. There are totally 8 types of endocrine glands have been seen in the frog. Then its nervous system, and we have also seen its type of sensory organs and the reproductive system, that is both male as well as female reproductive system and its development. So, yes, we are at the end of the morphology and anatomy of the frog. So, what is the benefit of frog to the mankind is? So, one thing is we know that the frog they normally eat insects, right? And protect the crops also. This is one thing. And it is very important for the balancing of the ecosystem, that is food cycle, because they serve as a major kind in the food cycle, food web in the ecosystem. In some countries, like China and all, they normally eat frogs. Okay, that is the muscular legs of the frogs have been used as a food by man. Really don't know how they eat and all, but yes. So these are something, and even the skin is also being used in some of the countries, like illegally, for some chemicals preparation or for some clothing, shoes making and all, which is actually an illegal thing and it should never happen. But with respect to the environment and ecology, it has a major benefits. That is, one thing is, since it eat upon the insect, like they depend upon the insects and they eat the insects, so that will create a balanced, food cycle, and it contributes major in the ecological food web also. So this is all about the importance of the frog in the ecology, and the things that you need to concentrate more is the anatomy part in the frog. Okay, yeah, cool. So this much for today's lecture, and in coming lecture I'll be discussing about again the morphology and anatomy part of the cockroach, which is not there in your newly added NCERT textbook, but it doesn't mean that they have been removed. NTA in the last year also nowhere they have mentioned that I have removed this chapter, right? Even this year nowhere they have mentioned that morphology as well as anatomy of cockroach will not be asked. So another video I'll make. So there I'll be concentrating on the morphology and anatomy of the cockroach part. So major thing I want from you guys is the comments, because without your comments, we will not be able to understand how's our lecture is going on, whether it is reaching you or not. So make sure that you also comment, like, subscribe, and also share with your friends. Thank you.